Welcome, everyone. We are about to get started here. It is going to take a minute to connect our folks on Instagram. So I'm just going to do that now. And once I have done that, then we will go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everyone to TalkShopLive. My name is Alison Cheperdak, and I am the founder of Elevate Etiquette. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here from the very beginning or anything in between, I am so grateful to have you here. Today, I am talking about my new book. My first book, Was It Something I Said? Everyday Etiquette to Avoid Awkward Moments in Relationships, Work, and Life. And I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about myself, how I got to start to write this book, and I'll be paying attention to the comments here as you're joining. So please know that you are welcome to ask any questions that you would like to about the book or the book writing process. And know that I'm doing this through TalkShopLive, which is a phenomenal platform that makes it easy to purchase signed copies of my book. So if you're interested in getting a signed copy of Was It Something I Said, I am delighted to be able to make that possible. So let's start with, how did I get into teaching etiquette, you might wonder. So I was engaged to be married. I was 22 years old, and I realized that I had all of these wedding etiquette questions that I didn't know the answer to. So I grew up in a home where manners and etiquette and respect and kindness were really prioritized, but I never went to cotillion. I never went to formal etiquette school. But when I was engaged to be married, I was the oldest child in my family, one of the older grandchildren. I had all these wedding etiquette questions. So my mom encouraged me to get my first etiquette book, which at the time was the Amy Vanderbilt Complete Book of Etiquette. And I thought that I was just getting this first book to turn to the pages that were going to have the answers that I was looking for. And I found myself reading that first book cover to cover, and countless books on emotional intelligence and etiquette and protocol and all of these things since then. And at the time, I was working as a television news reporter and anchor in upstate New York. And then I went on to go to law school, and I was practicing law and living in Washington and seeing that there's so many things about etiquette and soft skills and emotional intelligence that really can help someone or can hinder someone in their career or in their life. And it was a topic that I was really interested in, and I continued in a personal growth capacity, learning more and more about it. And I got to get a certification in etiquette, and eventually I decided to start posting online, and that's how the business got started. If you're just joining, welcome. This is a live made possible by TalkShopLive, and know that if you comment shop at any moment during this conversation, you will get a DM, which will direct you on how exactly to purchase a signed copy of the book. So whether you are watching on Instagram or on Facebook, you can comment shop and you'll be able to get a signed copy of the book. And I'm seeing some questions that are coming in here now. So what are the chapters of the book and how is it broken up? And so the way that it's broken up is I cover social etiquette, dining etiquette, professional etiquette, how to help people in challenging times, challenging moments. So if you're going to a funeral, if you're going to a wedding, all of these holidays, hosting with heart. And the way that it's structured, it's so unlike other etiquette books that I own, collect, and love, mine is a little bit different in that it is narrative driven in many ways. So I will start each chapter with a story. So I might talk about my time working in the White House, working in the West Wing, and how I remember someone coming in and asking for a particular favor, or someone who was a more junior colleague and was asking to take on more responsibility or experiencing something really fun, doing something really fun. And he didn't really know that when you're an intern or when you're a junior level staffer, that it's important to do all of the work that's assigned to you very, very well before you ask to do something else. And so those are the kind of things that I kind of talk about in the book as I try to put the meat on the bones of different etiquette principles. Oh, thank you. Someone's saying, I love your outfit. I don't know where is it from? It is a jacket that I got. It starts with a P and I can't remember exactly, but I got it on my Teresa. Okay, here's a question. What is the rudest thing you've ever heard someone say, and how do you react to it? I often think comments about weight are some of the rudest things that people can say. So that's something that I try to stay away from. Any kind of comments on weight, I try to stay away from. That's a great question. So if you're just joining, welcome. My name is Alison Cheperdak, and I'm with Elevate Etiquette. And today we're talking about my book, Was It Something I Said?, which is all about everyday modern etiquette that you need to know to avoid awkward moments in relationships, work, and life. And if you comment shop, if you are joining on Instagram or Facebook, you'll be able to get a signed copy of the book. I see Brittany's joining. Oh my goodness. Not sure if I remember sitting in class together, but I do at Simmons. Wow. So I did my freshman year at Simmons College. I don't know how many people know this, but I was a figure skater and ice dancer, and I was skating with my partner at the time, who I adored, in Boston. And then he decided to retire. And then I ended up moving to the Philadelphia area to skate with a different partner, which is how I ended up meeting my husband. So very cool. Love the title. Thank you. The title is, Was It Something I Said? Everyday Etiquette to Avoid Awkward Moments in Relationships, Work, and Life. And a funny thing about the title, we're in the height of the Christmas season right now. I was talking with my mom yesterday, and she was saying that she's not just writing the main title, but the subtitle on many Christmas cards, as she's been writing Christmas cards with my mom. Maybe it won't surprise you. She is someone who is really good about writing actual notes on her holiday cards and not just putting a card in the mail like that. If you're just joining, welcome. We are talking all about my new book, Was It Something I Said?, which comes out on March 17th. It is available on pre-order now. And if you comment shop at any point during this live, if you are someone who's joining on Instagram or Facebook, you will get a link DM to you so that you can order a signed copy. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have as we go through this. And I might continue to share a little bit if there aren't any questions rolling in at the moment. I hope I didn't miss any questions. I will share a little bit more about why I'm writing this book and who this book is for. I see folks from Charlottesville, not too far away. Kathleen, hi Kathleen, so great to see everybody. So I wrote this book for anyone who wants to be a kinder, more confident person, not because they have to, but because they want to. And it's for the person who wants to be able to lead a meeting really well and excel in their career, and also know how to meet your partner's parents, or how to support a friend going through pregnancy loss, or how to apologize, or all of these moments where you're thinking, was it something I said? And I don't share all this etiquette knowledge, even though there's a lot in there about, like, if you want to know exactly how to set a formal table, and there's dining etiquette, and we do get into a lot of the details. But I share all this not so that you can memorize etiquette for etiquette's sake, but so that it becomes second nature, so that you can focus on the conversations and the moments and the memories that really matter. I like to think about, like, many people when they go through a job interview process, or even like a networking process, if they're trying to get to know certain influential people in order to advance their career or pursue some sort of opportunity, there's often socializing and emailing and text conversations and coffee dates or lunches or dinners or going to galas or fundraisers or all kinds of things. And I don't want you worrying about what you're going to wear or what you're going to order or whether you eat it with your hands or what you need to do with respect to etiquette. I want these things to be second nature to you so that you can focus on the things that really matter. And if you're just joining, welcome. We are talking all about the book here. You are the target audience. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Can I flip through the pages and maybe read us a part or two of the book so we can see what it's like? I don't have the book pulled up in front of me at the moment. I don't have the book in front of me at the moment. Maybe next time I can think about that. Let's see. It sure does change from year to year. You've helped me so much in my 60s. I'm happy to hear that. I think of this book as one that I hope will be helpful for people of all different ages. So happy to hear that. The title, Was It Something I Said, captures a very universal fear. What moment in in my own life made me realize how powerful etiquette really is? I think I noticed it so much working in Washington. So Washington, D.C. is not a perfect place, but it is a place where a lot of people are relatively self-made. And I mean, no disrespect to people who have connections with family or grow up in an area or anything like that. But many people come to DC because they are very passionate about their careers and their education. And it's a town where many people have impressive academic credentials. So that's kind of like table stakes. And then it's the people of all political stripes who have more emotional intelligence, who are a joy to work with and are collaborative and insightful and strategic and trustworthy and loyal and all of these things that really excel. So I see it as a really essential thing. And I share that with some hesitation because I don't want anyone to think, well, etiquette is something that I should learn just so that I can advance for selfish gain, because the result of etiquette is that you will become more charismatic, more confident, more likable, but it is also about being more kind, and it should be rooted in integrity and respect. Where in Washington did you work? So I worked in many different capacities. I am an attorney, so I worked as a law clerk in Congress. So I was on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senate Homeland Security Committee, Senate Commerce Committee, House Ways and Means Committee. Then I was a law clerk for the chairman of the Federal Communication Commission. I worked in private practice at a large law firm in their DC office. And then I worked for the US Treasury, and then I worked in the White House, and I clerked for a federal judge. So those are some of my experiences. And then in addition to all of my legal work, I was a television news reporter and anchor before I went to law school, which was not in DC. That was in upstate New York. Okay, here's a question from Mary. Many people think etiquette is about being proper. You emphasize respect and kindness instead. How can etiquette actually help us be more authentic, not less? That's a great question. So I didn't come up with this, but something that the Emily Post Institute says so well is that you need to know the rules in order to break them. And what they mean by that is that there are instances in which it would be not so kind to follow the rules to a T, if it would make someone uncomfortable or if it would point out some shortcoming or something like that. Like there's moments like, for example, when you're setting a table and you're putting together your seating arrangement, if you're going to follow traditional etiquette, you would not put spouses beside each other. And the idea there is that you want to create a party or create an experience where spouses are not having the same experience the whole night long, and they can go home and have different conversations that they can share about their evening. It's also generally kinder for when you have guests that are single and guests that are with or in a couple. It's less obvious and it's a more seamless transition or seamless flow if you have single guests and guests that are married or in a relationship all kind of mixed up together. But let's say you have some guests coming over and you know that maybe someone has a lot of social anxiety and they don't know anyone. That would be an instance where maybe you want to bend the rules and put the couple that's engaged right beside each other, that kind of a thing. And Mary, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of saying that etiquette, it really is all about kindness and it is about respect. And it's about seeing the other person and the inherent dignity in them and treating them with the respect that they deserve. For sure. And I think the worst kind of etiquette of all is when you are doing it to show off, or if you are doing it to prove that you are better or that someone is less than, or trying to make them feel uncomfortable for what they don't already know. That in my mind is like a complete distortion of what etiquette should all be about. I see more people joining. I've loved living and working in DC. Happy to hear that. Pleased to see the topic is out there. It's a lost art. Okay, Larry says, from your time as a lawyer, news anchor, and White House staffer, what's the highest pressure moment where etiquette truly changed the outcome? I don't know if this is the highest pressure moment, but I have worked in some very high pressure moments. I've traveled on Air Force One and I worked in the West Wing, and I would be briefing the president for his speeches, making sure that he was pronouncing everything correctly and that any questions that he had were answered before he would be giving remarks. And what I found is that the people who are the best to work with and are the most effective are generally the ones who have a cool, calm, steady demeanor. They take their work very seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously. And they don't have an ego about the work that they're doing or the roles that they're assigned. And to me, on a very high level, that's etiquette at its finest. So, like, treating everyone with respect, having a grounded perspective on what's important, what's an emergency, what's not worth freaking out about, and being able to be really dependable and confident in doing your job well. Okay, here's another one. How do people often confuse politeness with self-silencing? There's a few ways that I see that. So people often confuse people pleasing with kindness, and people pleasing can look like over apologizing, or it can look like subjugating your own needs. It can look like, for example, people pleasing often it doesn't often please people anyway. Like, for example, it is more kind and is often more appreciated if someone says, "Where would you like to go to dinner tonight?" Instead of saying, "I don't care, wherever you want to go." You could say, "I'd love to try this place or that place," or "This is an old favorite." So, like, making it easier for someone to make a decision and being more clear is actually more kind. And it's usually received much better. Over apologizing, or let's say like saying yes to something and then needing to back away from it, or like you say yes to attending something and then something comes up and then you ultimately need to decline, or maybe you say yes to something or you say yes to like multiple things and then you're not really present or not really giving the commitment all that you should. Those are examples of people pleasing. Also, the question about self-silencing, etiquette is not about not confidently asserting yourself, speaking your opinion. If anything, etiquette should make it easier to be more confident in sharing your ideas or knowing right from wrong and asserting some boundaries. So it's definitely not about self-silencing at all. Let's see, advice for parents, especially ages 6, 7, and 8. I would say the best thing that you can do as a parent is model exceptional etiquette yourself and celebrate when your kids are doing that as well, and start to incorporate good habits. Like at ages 6, 7, and 8, if they're receiving gifts for their birthdays, it's a great opportunity to have them write thank you notes and talk about what makes a good thank you note. So a good thank you note is very specific. It mentions exactly the gift that was received and it expresses some kind of emotion or something really special, and then it wraps it up. It can be short and sweet, but getting children in a habit of writing thank you notes immediately or perhaps even before they use something is a lifelong skill and habit that will stay with them. Here's a question from Brenda. Do you think the most charismatic person is the one who listens or someone who's funny and intelligent? I think it's both, but charisma is so much about how you make the other person feel. So I read a book recently. It's called like the Big Business of Small Talk, I think. And I should say my book, Was It Something I Said, which we're talking about tonight, cites a lot of my favorite books and has the resources there. So if you are someone who likes to read one book and then finds a bunch of other related books within the genre, that my book does exactly that. But regarding charisma, this book in particular, it talks about a woman, and this might be just a fable, but it gets the point across. She went on 2 dates with 2 politicians that were running against each other for elected office. And she said the first man made her feel like he was the smartest person in the room, or the smartest person. And then the second person that she went on a date with made her feel like she was the smartest person. And the second person who made her feel like she was so smart was the one who got her vote. And the point in that little story there was that when you make another person feel better, that in turn makes you seem more charismatic. Okay, here's a question: how to speak more eloquently or come across more confident when you suffer from something like stuttering. Stuttering is normal. I have done it within the context of this 20-minute live. I did it earlier today on live television. And so know that it's normal, and also that it may not be as obvious to other people as it is to you. And then other things that you can do to eliminate stuttering is to practice, and this may sound counterintuitive, but you don't want to practice too much. And this was something that I learned when I was a TV news reporter, and then in my first year of law school, when I was learning how to do oral arguments as an attorney for the first time. If you try to memorize a speech, or if you try to memorize exactly what you're going to say, it's more easy to feel like you've tripped up because you haven't said something exactly as planned. But if you instead have bullet points, like tonight, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking I would open up and I would share a little bit about my background and how I got into this, and then I would just let the questions roll and I would answer them. It's easier for me, and I think for many, to have like top line bullet points or subjects that you're going to talk about, because then it comes across more as a conversation rather than like a scripted speech. And with stuttering, you also want to focus on speaking more slowly and then also breathing. And that will help with a number of things. Like if you have any sort of vocal fry in your voice, which is kind of like that running out of breath feeling at the end of your sentences, that will also help with that. I'm seeing more people joining. Thank you. I love my top, Very Elle Woods. I appreciate that. You know, it's funny. I wore this jacket I just picked out the headshot for the book. Was it something I said? And I thought that I would wear this jacket. But when I actually saw it all together, I ended up going with another one, but I do really like it. Okay, here's a question from Nancy. What's the biggest etiquette mistake people make in professional settings, especially in emails, texts, or Slack messages? Well, I would say before we even go to email, text, and Slack messages, I would say the biggest etiquette mistake I see is not listening to other people. So thinking more about what you are going to say next and less about what the other person is saying. And when you do that, it creates a really disjointed conversation. And the unfortunate piece about this is that many times the people who are not listening and are so hyper-focused on themselves and what they are going to say next are usually the people that have more social anxiety. But if you give yourself the permission to say, I am just going to listen to what this person says, then you will start to become more creative and less rigid in the questions that you're asking and the things that you're talking about. And over time, it will start to flow more easily. But regarding emails, texts, and Slack messages, I would say your emails, texts, and Slack messages are not your texts with your friends. And this includes even if some of your colleagues are close friends. So you want to be engaging in a way that is fitting for your organization. And whether you work in law, finance, or consulting, maybe your tone and tenor would be different than if you're working at an art gallery or in fashion or in media. But you want to read the room, understand what is appropriate, just like we understand what dress code is appropriate in various settings. What is the tone and tenor of the industry and the organization that you're a part of? And then make sure that your communications over email, text, and Slack are consistent with that. And you want to be respectful of the recipient's time and the way your messages are coming across. So like, instead of sending 10 emails, could it be 3? Could it be 1 email? That kind of a thing. Here's a question from Lauren. Dress codes cause a lot of anxiety. What's your framework for decoding what to wear when expectations feel unclear? If I'm ever unclear of a dress code, I try to ask the host or ask someone who has been to an event before or been to something before. If it's like a gala or something that is recurring, if I can find pictures of the event in the past, then I will try to track down those pictures. And then beyond that, I will just think like, what is the weather? What am I doing? And what would make me feel comfortable? That's how I approach it. Okay, here's a question. Could I make suggestions for how to handle conflict between spouses with greater grace, especially when you're both zealous people? First, pick your moments. So maybe I know, like for myself, I've never had a helpful, productive conversation that was over something that I disagreed with after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. So pick a moment that's good for both of you and lead with your intentions and how you're on the same team, and then create space to disagree. It's perfectly healthy to disagree. It is wonderful to be able to have these conversations, but I would say number one is pick a good time. So not before someone's going into a big meeting or they have something stressful happening or they've got a lot on their plate, and even ask like, would now be a good time or when would be a good time to talk about X, Y, and Z? And then if they are really zealous, I would almost try to appreciate that zealousness. Like they really care and they are not apathetic and they want to make sure that you're making the right decision and they care about your family and you as a couple. So try to appreciate their enthusiasm for their convictions, even if their convictions may be different than your own, and treat it like a practice. So, like, maybe this conversation, let's just try to make it better than the last conversation of this kind. And then with each conversation, each subsequent conversation that is similar, try to just make it a little bit better. And before you know it, you might be having much more diplomatic conversations with your zealous spouse. I like that question. Here, it seems like you and your husband have a beautiful relationship. And as a newlywed, I'd love to learn how I navigate situations like that better. That's a really sweet question. I will say my husband and I, what we share on social media or what we share online are the highlights. And we certainly have our disagreements as well. Regarding how to navigate situations better, I would say always remember your intentions. A friend recently told me that it's so easy to judge our own actions by our intentions and our or others' actions by their results or ramifications. And the more you can remember your partner or your spouse's intentions, the more compassion you'll be able to bring to a disagreement or a challenging moment. Okay, Gina says dining etiquette still intimidates many people. What are a few rules that actually matter most, and which ones can we stop worrying about? Okay, so things that I think we definitely need to continue to think about are like chewing with your mouth closed, saying thank you to your host or your server, not asking for like ridiculously difficult things, or being ungrateful, working from the outside in. So, like, if you see your place setting, you work from the utensils on the outside or the outermost utensils, and then you work your way in. Napkin goes on your lap. Things that I think we can do away with. I mean, I'm someone that's like every day's a good day to be at your best kind of a person. So I wouldn't say there's anything that I would do away with, but what I don't believe in is pointing out anyone else's flaws. So if someone is asking you, because I'm hoping that everyone will buy my book, Was It Something I Said? And you'll be armed with all kinds of new information or affirmation of things that you already know. But when it comes to dining etiquette or any other kind of etiquette, I would not share what you know unless you feel like someone's really receptive to learning, or if you are in a position where like you are a parent or you are a spouse or you are a colleague or someone with a vested interest in this person's success and development in this area. And if you're just joining, we are talking about Was It Something I Said, which is my book, which is coming out on March 17th. And it's all about everyday etiquette to help you avoid awkward moments in relationships, work, and life. And I'm so excited for you all to get it. And if you're just joining, you can comment shop on both Instagram and on Facebook to get yourself a signed copy, which I am delighted to be able to provide for you. And a little context on this book. This is a book that you can read cover to cover, and it's very narrative driven. So I will share experiences from my life, whether it's in figure skating, as a news reporter, as an attorney, as a business owner, and then I will share the facts. So like the black and white things, the bullet points, the things that you need to know, the diagrams that are helpful for easy reference. And the reason that I do that is because I want you to know that I've made some mistakes. And so you can learn my mistakes so you don't have to make them too. And also, I want it to be more memorable and more interesting and more than just something that you can easily look up. Because so much of my professional experience as a TV news reporter, as an attorney, working in government and private practice and a nonprofit informs my perspective on all of these things. So that's why I have it hand in hand, that narrative driven lessons, or the narrative driven lessons, as well as the more straightforward etiquette advice. And it's written in such a way where you could read it cover to cover, or you could flip to exactly the page that you need to know. Like, let's say you're going to a wedding this weekend, or you have a funeral tomorrow, or you're not sure, like, do you eat bacon with your hands or with your finger, or with your hands or with a fork? All of these things. That's how I've set it up. So I would love for this book to be a trusted guide for you that you can turn to whenever you need it. Okay, Luna asks, how can etiquette help build deeper connections, not just smoother interactions? Well, etiquette allows you to calm down in your conversations and be more confident in your conversations. So something that I talk about a lot, and this was something that I learned from reading Charles Duhigg's Super Communicators, is being prepared for conversations. So what that looks like is not going to events where you don't know what you're going to talk about. He talks about this study that Harvard Business School did about when people would write down topics that they could talk about and put it on an index card, and they would put that index card in their back pocket. And not only did none of the topics usually come up when people went to these networking events, but just the exercise of jotting down a few topics that they could talk about if an awkward lull in conversation came up, doing that exercise made them more confident in conversation. When you have topics ready and you also give yourself permission to ask questions and be curious and know how to do like conversational threading. So that's something that I write about in the book, which is we so often talk about answer or asking questions that are open-ended. So instead of saying, is pink my favorite color, say something like, what are some of your favorite colors and why? Or like, if you were planning a tablescape, what colors would you choose? Or just open-ended questions that facilitate more robust conversation. Relatedly, when you're answering, it's better to do conversational threading, which is where you're giving more than one piece of information. So for example, if someone said, what do you have going on this weekend? I might say that I am finishing my Christmas shopping. I'm going to dinner with my husband's parents, and I'm packing to travel for Christmas to go to Maine. So people could ask about any number of things there, versus if you only provide one piece of information, you're giving your conversational partner less to go off of. So to answer the question of how can etiquette help build deeper connections, when you are more confident in conversation, in both sharing and asking about another person, it will foster these more deeper conversations, which facilitate the deeper connections. Okay, Mallory asks, you emphasize polished presence without pretense. What does that look like in real life? So being polished is something that I like to think of as a way that we show respect for ourselves and respect for others. And it's a way to make you feel like you have that little sparkle as you go about your days. But it's not about being better than other people. I think like the ultimate coolest factor of all is when you are really polished and really impressive, but also really warm and really approachable. And it's possible to do that. It's absolutely possible to do that. So that's what I think of when I think of polished presence without pretense. So like, for example, what I'm striving to do here in this live is I'm striving to show up at my best and answer these questions, but I'm trying to do it in a way and engage in this conversation in a way that no one feels less than or uncomfortable asking any kind of question. I want this to be a space where there's no mean energy and people feel like this is a safe space to learn. So that's just an example of how I apply that concept of polished presence without pretense. I love these questions. Douglas says, I hope the second date one. I hope so too. That was in regards to a um, an analogy that we talked about from another book. And if you're just joining, welcome. We were talking about my book, Was It Something I Said, which is an etiquette book filled of everyday etiquette to help you avoid awkward moments in relationships, work, and life. It comes out on March 17th, which can't come soon enough. I'm so excited. I'm realizing we're just a few months out now. And if you comment shop, if you're watching on Instagram and Facebook, then you will get a DM immediately, which will give you a link to purchase a signed copy of the book. So very excited to provide that. And if you are watching on YouTube now, or if you would just prefer to, you can also purchase a signed copy directly on TalkShopLive, which is the platform which is making this simulcast all possible here. Okay, here is a question. I understand that political affiliation shouldn't matter from an etiquette perspective, but some people do care to support individuals and businesses that align with their values. How to navigate that? I completely agree that political affiliation should not matter from an etiquette perspective and that everyone is deserving of respect. But to the extent folks choose to support individuals or businesses that align with their values, that's something that I respect, and it's a free country. And I would say it doesn't have to be political. It could be about, your faith or health or any number of things. If you ever feel like an organization or a business isn't aligned with your values in a way that you're uncomfortable moving forward with them, then that's fine. I don't see a problem with that, no matter what your views are. So long as, yeah, that's how I would approach that. Okay, Kathleen asks, how can you handle politics with family at the holidays? One way to handle it is to defer if you're not someone who wants to talk about politics and have some lines ready, like something like, I didn't realize we would be solving world peace over dinner tonight, or saying something like, I'm so happy to see you and I really want today to be about our time together or catching up or about our family or things like that. And it's perfectly possible to love people and love them really well and not talk about politics. And that's something that should be respected. And if you want to set that boundary in your home or within your family or with your friends, that's perfectly fine. Okay, Alex asks, anything you had to leave out of your book? Yes, there was a lot that I had to leave out of my book. So a funny thing about writing a book is, at least my experience, is that thinking about it is actually a lot harder than the actual doing of it. But a lovely thing about working with a publishing house, and I am so grateful for my team at W Publishing and at HarperCollins, is that they help you navigate the process and they help you cut things down. Because I went from, oh my word, how in the world am I going to write all of these words that I need to write, to having way more, like we're talking, I don't know, like 40,000 words that I cut from an initial draft of the manuscript. And I have everything that I cut in organized, alphabetized PDFs that I can use for another book or for speaking engagements or for clients as needed. But yes, there was a lot that I had to delete from the book. And this book is very much like a everything you need to know, business etiquette, dining etiquette, social etiquette, and it also answers a lot of your questions. So I start each chapter with a narrative portion that helps extrapolate a concept from my own life. So some of them are funny, some of them are personal, or at least I think that they're funny. And I talk about what I learned, and then I get into everything you need to know. And then I wrap up with a Q&A component. So these are questions from readers, people that I've connected with on social media, and I answer all of your questions to the best of my ability. And the reason I'm writing this book is because I love connecting with people on social media, but I'm also such a reader, such a writer, and I was really attracted to the idea of just having all of my ideas in one place. So this is like easy way for you to turn to exactly the chapter that you need. Like, just like I was when I was engaged to be married and thinking like, do I need to send an invitation to every single one of my adult cousins? Or do all of my cousins need to get a date even if they're not in a relationship? Or how do I write and or address an envelope to a same-sex couple? All of these questions, back quite a few years ago, I was the one looking to turn to those pages to find the answers that I was looking for. And then I found myself just diving in and loving the subject. But this book is written so that you can do either. You can flip to the pages that you need to get the answers that you're looking for, or you can read it cover to cover. Have any of your viewpoints changed from writing the book to its release? No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. And someone asked, how long did the book actually take to write? So it's interesting. When you're writing a book, at least this was my experience, and I wrote a nonfiction book, so I had to do less writing in the request for the proposal writing process than say a fiction author. But in general, you have really intense sprints, and then you have big chunks of time where editors are reviewing your work, and then a draft comes back to you, and you're responding to their draft changes and their comments, and you're making edits, and then it goes to editors again, and it goes back and forth until you ultimately arrive at a final copy that looks like the book that you're all going to receive. So I would say it takes about 2 years if you're working with a traditional publishing house, is the general rule of thumb. Okay. I know we've been going for a little while, so we will I'll answer a couple more questions. And if you're just joining, welcome. I'm so grateful that you're here. We were talking about my book, Was It Something I Said? An etiquette book to help you avoid awkward moments in relationships, work, and life. It comes out on March 17th. And if you are here now watching on Instagram or on Facebook, if you comment shop, you can get a signed copy. And if you're watching on YouTube or directly on TalkShopLive, you can also order your signed copy on TalkShopLive. So here's a question from Justine. She says, how do you steer the conversation towards positivity when in a tense environment, my family doesn't get along and they make small jabs at one another in casual conversations? Any tips to cut the tension? I would use humor. This is just my gut reaction. If people are already using small jabs, then maybe you could say something like, oh, maybe I'm getting sensitive, but I don't love all of these small jabs. Or like, maybe you could just experiment with a day of not so many small jabs and just see how that goes. That's how I would approach it. And if it's really bothering you, address it in a serious way. So say, I love spending time with you. I know you don't mean anything by it, likely, but I don't love it. Or this is how I feel when we have these kinds of conversations. And I understand. I understand. And if it's something that's bothering you enough to want to talk about it in this conversation, then you might think about bringing it up with your family in a more serious way. There are so many questions here. I wish I could get to all of them. Okay, I have a question. I was invited over for dinner by a couple. I brought a salad to contribute to the dinner, but she didn't serve it with the meal. Was that a faux pas on my part? So my question here is, did she ask for the salad? So if the host asks you for a particular dish, then that's considered a potluck and you should expect for that dish to be served. If they don't ask for something, then they don't necessarily need to serve it. So if a host doesn't ask for something, I wouldn't bring something that obviously needs to be served at that meal. So for example, you could bring chocolates, which could be served with dessert, or it also could be served for another time. But if you bring something like a salad that wasn't part of her plan, maybe the host or host already had a salad prepared. So in that case, if I were the host, I probably would have made space for it just to accommodate the guests. But if we're really following etiquette to a T, it's up to the host as to whether they serve whatever is given to them and not requested. And in the future, just get clarity on exactly what you can bring or if they need anything. Oh, Amelia, thank you so much. She says she can't wait for March 17th. Well, I think I've answered not every question, but most of your questions. I really appreciate you all being here. Again, my name is Alison Cheperdak. I'm from Elevate Etiquette, and today we've been talking about my book, Was It Something I Said?, which comes out on March 17th. It is a modern etiquette book, and if you comment shop on this post here, if you are watching on Instagram or on Facebook, you will immediately get a direct message with a link to purchase a signed copy of the book. And if you're watching on YouTube or another means, you can go onto TalkShopLive's website and you can find my channel. Again, my name is Alison Cheperdak, and you can get a signed copy or order a signed copy of the book there. And in closing, I want to thank you all for being here. I can't tell you how excited and grateful I am. And I want this book to be really helpful. I wrote this for you. I'm able to write it because of you. And not a day goes by that I don't think about that and appreciate that. This opportunity is because of the loyalty and the support and the enthusiasm that I've received over social media for years now. And so thank you. Whether you buy a book tonight or you get it at the library in the future or you listen to it on Audible or whatever it is, know that I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you making time to be with me tonight. And I hope that we will continue to stay connected on social media, and you can always send me a DM of any questions that you might have. And thank you again. And I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and I will see you soon.